Good morning, and thank you to the PSG Tech team for having me here today. Audacity or arrogance, futility or wasted effort, and fear. These are the words that have become the most important chapters in my book of errors. I have repeated these mistakes countless number of times. I have agonized over them. I have fallen and picked myself up and learned to forge a path. I inhabit two very different worlds, sometimes very similar worlds, poetry and social work. And when you come from these two worlds, you are clued in to walk into failure on most days. What failure does is it becomes a handbook for you to create a path when there appears to be none. And it also sweetens the prospect of hope, which arrives on a very bleak morning or on a deep, dark night, and you find yourself clutching to it like a straw, even as you are drowning. I like to think of mistakes not just as tools for revolution, but as individual implosions that sometimes shatter your worlds, but then you can use these as ammunitions to rebuild them. And I have learned a lot from my areas of social work. The very first of them came with the arrogance of believing that we can solve problems because we have all the answers. The year was 2014. We were 2 years old in our NGO. We had a great team, we had a cause we believed in, and I was this founder going around with this torch, bearing this illusion that together we're going to change the world. We had just begun work with the transgender community. And in our long interactions with them, we discovered that there were some lacunae that we could easily fill. Life, my dear friends, in the world of a trans woman or a trans man is a raw deal every day. If one of our trans women friends wants to rent a house, she lands up paying double or triple the rent simply because of the perceived threat that comes from renting out an apartment to one of her kind. The same goes for educational institutions and organizations simply because we're not equipped to handle marginalized, vulnerable communities. So we said, okay, let's find jobs for them. Jobs will mean steady income, and steady income will provide guarantee for progress. So out we went, we partnered with organizations that believed in our cause, and we placed our transgender friends in different organizations as varied as bakeries, beauty salons, corporate organizations, and even software companies. Every time the result was zero. Not one of our trans women friends or trans men could sustain the job. Worse, not one of these institutions had designed an ecosystem to hold space for them. By 2018, 4 years into the line, our trans friends were very disillusioned, and so were we. That's when I met Nancy on one of the busy roads here in this city. I had less than a minute of an interaction with her, and in that time she blurted out to me, "Ma'am, I'm an engineering student. I can't make the rent. Can you help me?" It struck us then as a bolt, like a bolt of lightning. We had never gone to the ground with the question, how can we help you? It was always with the presumption that, hey, we're here to help you because we know better. That flip of changing that question transformed the way we worked. Today, some examples of our transgender friends, Taslima Nazreen is perhaps the most famous of them here in this city, runs a manufacturing company that manufactures home care products, and she employs former addicts. Sujitra set up a grocery store in her area and also serves as a home guards volunteer, spending 5 days every month in serving society. Nancy, the person I met, is today a proud engineering graduate, another trans man friend, Sonesh, is pursuing his PhD at a very renowned institution. Liana and her friends wanted to learn dry cleaning, the art of dry cleaning. They went through a certification program and today run their own venture. Anjali wanted to learn the trade of beauty, becoming a beautician and tailoring, and today offers comprehensive wellness services for women in the city. That model, they helped us devise the model that we work on now. A, identifying the skills that they want to build on that would allow them to nurture their passions and interests. B, funding entrepreneurial and education efforts for them. C, setting up sustenance amounts that will help them tide over crisis for a period of time, like providing rent and stuff like that. And the fourth is constant mentoring. Today, our transgender friends speak stories of empowerment and lead happy, purposeful lives. But they have been prone to the greatest error that I think humankind is reason for, the audacity, the arrogance of judgment. We're all victims of judgment. We're also its perpetrators. And nobody has really faced harsher judgment than our transgender friends. And each time they have come out victorious because they have taken on the errors of a world that can be kind to them, flipped it, and risen. It led us to this one very introspective question, reflective question. Is it fair to put the onus of resilience on the individual when the world can be changed? It got us into questioning, why can't we recraft our DNA to challenge that status quo that society is? Why can't we dent ecosystems into being kinder, not just for marginalized communities, but to every sentient being around? And that is what we're working on, to constantly question and alter statuses that are prevalent in society right now. The third lesson came to us from a very different sphere. It came from children. In 2020, we began working with children by funding scholarships for those of them who had lost a parent, primarily the breadwinner of the house, to the pandemic. We quickly realized that scholarships were only going to bridge a bit, and they were really not doing enough justice to actually nurture this child who had lost complete social and cultural capital because of the want of a parent. So we decided to develop a mentorship module, and we worked on it for 2 years, and every time we found something missing. That was when one of our core team members said, hey, why don't we look at existing models and see if we can apply it to us? We had never thought of collaboration at all. Why? Because we believed we were working on the ground and we had to create it. Within a month, we were able to enter into a collaborative partnership with a dynamic NGO and launch the collaborative initiative. Over the last 2 years, 50 mentors have signed up from different corners of the world, and they have worked with children from rural, urban, and remote locations. We've seen some of the shyest children transform into confident communicators, capable of critical thinking, problem solving, and what have you. However, as we went along this mentorship initiative, we realized that we had actually stopped listening to children. The futility of working without listening, that's the next mistake that we had made. Somewhere down the line, we had curated a combined model of virtual and real-time learning. And what that resulted in is it became a kind of compulsion for children to turn up for these physical immersions. It took away the joy of exploration and learning that we wanted it to be. We also discovered that in the complex caste, class, economics, and gender matrix that governs so much of what we do, we had failed to look at creating an equal footing. That's what real education must strive to do. Create an equal footing for everybody. So we're back to the drawing board now as I speak. And we've been in conversation with children, we've been in conversation with artists and community builders, and we found that in the brief time that we worked with children, theater was a very, very enabling and empowering tool to work. So our model now is working towards building an arts-based curriculum for vulnerable, marginalized children. One thing I realized is leadership in the social work context is a very tricky business. Mistakes of leadership can have lasting impact. It can inhibit growth. It can destroy. As an individual, I have been very aware of the gravity of that responsibility. Thanks to this young, vibrant team of people we have, young people that we have been able to recraft our DNA as an organization that works on collective leadership. In the initial years, our organization was working based on my limited experience and my limited exposure. But today, every innovation, every improvement, every collaborative venture that we launch is born from that collective leadership spirit. I have made as many mistakes on the page as I have in social work. When the life of a writer and writing is a lonely job, it is not as glamorous. There's really no high day as is projected on social media. Work stretches into days, months, sometimes years, and it takes all that time to even alter a comma at the end of a line in a poem. But when you learn the rules of the dance, like Mary Oliver puts it, fiction and poetry allow for that gift of imagination. It is with this arrogance that I entered the world of haiku and haikai writing, saying, hey, you know what, I've been writing poetry for a long time, so this should be easy. It's 3 lines after all. Haikai forms are Japanese short forms of poetry steeped in the art of Zen Buddhism and Japanese aesthetics. It is an art where you learn about the environment and learn to see the world as it is, not as you imagine it to be. For the first time, I had to step out and listen to what a bird or a tree wanted to tell me, rather than imagine what it taught me. The father of modern haiku, Matsuo Basho, a Zen monk, said in the 1700s, if you want to write about the pine, become the pine. For the first time, I realized I knew nothing about my immediate environment. I did not know the names of places, trees, plants, birds. The more I knew, the less I knew. It was an enormously humbling experience that taught me never to take the written word for granted. I also made a lot of mistakes in the illusion of being this working woman, riding on this futility of this illusion of independence. For a long time, I wanted to tick every box: motherhood, wifehood, workhood, NGO-hood if you have it, and do it all with the best of my ability, letting no ball drop. A debilitating illness took away several months, actually a few years of my life some time ago, and I was forced to give up this idea of independence for leaning in. And leaning in, I discovered, was not so bad after all. It was deeply empowering because for the first time, I could allow myself to fall and not have my spirit broken simply because there was a support system that I had allowed to come in around me, my family, my closest friends, who held me as I went through this difficult time. I realized then that we don't have to do anything on our own. Actually, we cannot do everything on our own. Leaning in, for me, is a deeply symbiotic relationship because even as you are taking from someone, you are giving to someone else. The last mistake or error that I would like to share with you is the fear of fallow time. We live in an era where productivity is deified. We love 80-hour, 90-hour weeks, and we closely tie that to success, to climbing up the ladder. For a long time, through my 20s and 30s and better half of my 40s, I rode that productivity bus. I also realize now you know how old I am. But I rode that productivity bus, pushing my work days to 20 hours plus a day, week after week, month after month. And consequently, that resulted in a burnout that continues to drive me today. Lasted years. I also realized that the best ideas are born in the calm, even if chaos surrounds us. I never thought of myself as a writer in this chaotic world that I was riding. And realizing that allowed me to carve out special times of solitude for myself. Did it make me a bestseller? Not at all. I'm still a very obscure poet writing in a very small part of the world. But what it did allow me to do is it allowed me to listen to my voice and allowed me to share the stories that I wanted to tell. Ladies and gentlemen, I also chronicle lives of famous people. I write biographies. I cover industrial histories. And one of the common patterns of leadership that I have seen is that leaders are really not focused on success. What they focus on is transforming the current status of an environment. And after that, success may be a byproduct at best. But after the transformation has happened, there is work to be done. I'd like to conclude with a favorite poem of mine, of my all-time favorite poet, Mary Oliver. She says, I go to the shore every morning, and depending on the time, the waves are rolling in or moving out. And I say, oh, I'm miserable. What should I do? And the sea, in its quiet and lovely voice, responds, excuse me, I have work to do. Thank you so much.